Hello and welcome to Alexandra Creates. I'm Alexandra and today we're going to make super flaky biscuits. So I'm going to make a pretty big batch. This will make maybe about 30 to 35 biscuits. And in here I have 60 ounces of all-purpose flour. Now as I went for my flour, I didn't have enough all-purpose white flour, so I did grab whole wheat flour to mix in here. So I've never done this before, so we're going to try them and see. So in here I have kosher salt. This is 1.5 ounces. I'm going to add that. I have baking powder. This is 3.75 ounces. And then I have sugar. This is 1.5 ounces of sugar. When you add sugar to a recipe, that helps brown your item. So this will add a nice brownness to this recipe. So I have weighed everything using my scale. I did look this up at Amazon and they run about $10 right now. Okay, so I'm just going to lightly mix this. Get all those ingredients incorporated. Okay, and then I have 21 ounces of butter. And when I do anything like a biscuit or a scone with butter, I grate my butter in. So instead of chopping it up, sometimes those pieces aren't always accurate as far as the thickness. So then they don't blend very well. So this trick I saw, this might have been with Bon Appetit magazine, maybe. I can't remember. But they suggested when I was making a scone to grate it like this, and I thought that's a great idea. So I just do that for all these like biscuit and scone recipes. All right, so I'll wash my hands and then we'll mix this up. Okay, so we're just going to mix this up with our hands. You're just really working in that butter. Turning your bowl as you go helps as well. All right, so we kind of get to this point where you think your butter is pretty much mixed in there. I have 39 ounces of buttermilk, and we're going to pour that in. And then I like to kind of mix it first with a spatula till it mixes in a bit. And this is where it gets pretty messy. Okay, now we're just going to dig in with our hands. And we don't want to overwork this dough. And when I take my hands and I go all the way to the bottom and my hands meet, and then I kind of flip the dough. So you're bringing up those dry ingredients on the bottom. I'm also turning the bowl too as I do that. So I have my two hands down there meeting, flip it, and then squeeze. Okay, and then when you have this kind of shaggy dough, we're going to do turns. Meaning we're going to turn this bowl quarter turns, and we're only going to do it a dozen times. This is to ensure that you just do not overwork this dough. So what we're going to do is go under, our hands will meet, flip it, and push down. And I squeeze at the same time. Turn it. 2. Turn it. 3. Turn it. 4. Turn it. 5. Turn it. 6. Turn it. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. And 12. Okay, so then we have our dough here. I'm going to lift this out, place it on my counter. And I have my whole wheat flour here. I'm going to lightly dust my counter so this does not stick. Okay, and then I want to make this maybe in the shape of a rectangle to start off. So I'm just pressing down. Kind of hitting the sides to keep it straight. And you want to always turn your dough as you're working with it. That way it won't stick. Now if I was to just take this dough and start rolling it out and never turn it, most likely it's going to stick. Okay, so I just put a little flour on top since it was a little sticky. Make sure I'm turning it. That's a happy dough right there. All right, and then we're just going to roll this to about 3/4 to maybe an inch thick. And turn it. And I like to roll from corner to corner. That pushes your corners out to kind of keep your shape. Oops, I'm sorry for hitting the camera there. Okay, and turn. Corner to corner. And turn. You're getting pretty close there. And try to keep yourself all squared up. Now you want this dough relatively the same thickness. You don't want a thin biscuit and a thick biscuit. Then you're going to have mad people asking, why did I get a thick one? Why did I get a thin one? Okay. So I'm kind of there where I want to be as far as thickness. So I just kind of run my hand over it, and you can tell if there's a high spot that you need to kind of push out a bit. It'll feel uneven. And you can adjust, like I'm going over this very lightly, hardly any pressure, to work out that little lump here. Whereas when I first started, I was pushing down much more. Okay, so there we go. I'm making square biscuits just because I don't want a lot of waste. And then an easy way to kind of Make sure you have even. The shape of them are pretty even, and you know, if you're trying to make 1-inch squares or 1.5, I just go in the middle, and then I'll kind of score in the middle again. I won't push through, and that way I can see, is that the size that I want for these biscuits, or should I go thicker or thinner? So this is actually for a luncheon that we're gonna have. So it's not to make a meal, so I'm just gonna keep these pretty small. Go ahead and score. That one's a little bit small. Okay, so these score lines, you can kind of work those out. Okay, if it's not to your liking. Okay, so I'm just going to start in the middle again, push down, and then just work myself through here. Okay, and then I want to turn this because it will be easier for me to cut that way. So I'm just going to lightly kind of lift these up. I don't want to mess with their shape. 3 at a time. Again, I'll kind of cut it in the middle and see. Okay. And then I have a sheet pan here, and I'm just going to put these on my sheet pan, kind of lifting these up with my knife and laying them down on my sheet pan. Okay, cut the rest of these. All right, so I've kind of run out a little room on my sheet pan here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of parchment paper, and I'm going to lay that down on top of these other biscuits. These are going to go into the freezer just to kind of set up so they won't spread out when you go to bake them. Okay, so I'm going to stick these into the freezer, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, depending when you need them. You could freeze these overnight or a week or even up to a month, and then when you're ready to bake them, you just pull them out of the freezer, give them a little bit of butter on top, and then bake them. All right, so here we have our biscuits out of the freezer. They are rock hard. I've melted about a quarter pound of butter, or a stick of butter. Melted that. I'm going to brush these slightly with the butter. And then these biscuits are going to go in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes at 400 degrees. All right, there we go. All right, so here we go, guys. The biscuits are done. They're out of the oven. If you could tell, there's a nice little brownness to them. Now, if you don't use whole wheat flour in your recipe like I did, you'll be able to tell the brownness of them much better. And then a little bit of browned on the bottom. Should be split a little bit by itself. So you just pop these babies open. And look at that. Deliciousness. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up, comment, and subscribe for future videos. That really helps me out in YouTube land. I'll have the recipe linked in the description, and I'll actually post a smaller recipe just because this yielded about 40 biscuits. It's a large batch, so I will put in a smaller recipe that will be easier to kind of manage if this is your first time making biscuits. Thank you so much. Have a joyful day. Bye-bye.